The King has been heckled by an Australian ingrate politician as King Charles and Queen Camilla visited Parliament House in Canberra as part of a 6-day tour of the country. Does this represent a genuine view of republicanism in Australia? Peter Tatchell is a human rights campaigner and director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation. Peter, thank you very much indeed for coming on. To what extent do you think Lidia Thorpe, the independent senator for Victoria, was right to heckle King Charles in this way?
Well, she is an Indigenous Australian, and she represents a community that has suffered great discrimination and disadvantage over centuries. So I think it was quite right for her to wait till King Charles had finished his address and then shout out what she did to draw attention to the fact that a genocide was committed against Indigenous Black Australians. And even to this day, there is no treaty. Australia is unlike the United States and unlike New Zealand, which have treaties with their Indigenous populations. Australia has never had a treaty. And indeed, over the years, Indigenous Australians have been pushed out from the most fertile, productive coastal areas into deserts, remote deserts, and even then, when minerals and oil are found, they're pushed away again. They've been treated appallingly, and it's right that Lidia made a protest.
Is that the King's fault?
Well, Australia was seized in the name of the King, on the authority of the then monarch. The colonisation was supported by the British monarchy. The British monarchy sent its officials there to oversee the new colony. And in that new colony, dreadful things were done. Not only were Aboriginal Indigenous people dispossessed from their land and forced away, but the English settlers who had perhaps been indulging in fox hunting in England, there were no foxes in Australia, so they went what they called abo hunting. They went on horseback with guns to search out Aboriginal tribes and peoples and shoot them dead like foxes. And this was all done in the name of the British Crown. So, of course, the current monarchy has a responsibility to face up to that reality and to support Indigenous Australians in their quest for justice.
Would it be enough, then, for the King, the Queen, the monarchy now to, of course, say all of that is completely abhorrent, absolutely horrendous that it happened? We are sorry that it happened, but we didn't do it.
There needs to be an apology, a very clear, unequivocal apology. And this trip by the King and Queen to Australia is the perfect moment to do it. Although, unfortunately, it appears they won't. I mean, it just rubs salt into the wound of Indigenous Australians. When the first English settlers went there were possibly 500,000 or 250,000 Black Australians. It was their land. Yet, by the early 20th century, the numbers of the black population had plummeted because of a policy of it was a form of genocide, ethnic cleansing and so on. And that goes completely against the trend. Normally populations grow over time. The Indigenous population actually fell and tens of thousands died.
Let me put this to you finally. Lidia Thorpe says, this is not your land. This is to the King. This is not your land. You are not my king. Peter Tatchell, is King Charles your king?
Well, he is the King of England, a king of Great Britain, but he should not be the King of Australia. Australia is an independent country. It should have its own head of state. It shouldn't have a head of state based in Britain, a monarch, unelected, unaccountable, thousands and thousands of miles away. And that is the sentiment of most Australians. No real personal ill will towards King Charles and Camilla. It's not about them personally, but they represent a system where Britain colonised and still has a degree of power over Australia. It's very minimal and mostly ceremonial, but nevertheless, I think most Australians now agree that their head of state should be an Australian, not an English aristocrat.
Peter, thank you for coming on. Peter Tatchell, human rights campaigner, director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation. If you are Australian and you happen to be listening to that, does Peter Tatchell accurately represent your view? You can't understand why the monarchy as brought about in Australia from Britain, continues to be the ceremonial head of Australia. It does. I have to say, as I get older, I know you're supposed to go the other way. You know, you're supposed to get more conservative as you get older, small c conservative as you get older. On this issue, I find myself becoming more and more Republican, if I'm honest. I just think it is a bit crazy for Australia to have a constitutional monarchy rooted in England as the constitutional monarchy of Australia. It is weird. Why does that continue to exist today, and should it?